U.S. Naturalization in Depth, Continuous Residence. In this video, we will be taking an in-depth look into one core aspect of U.S. naturalization and becoming a United States citizen, specifically continuous residence, looking to the stated position of the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. If you are looking to become a U.S. citizen under the General Naturalization Provision, you must have resided continuously in the United States after your lawful permanent resident admission for at least 5 years prior to filing the naturalization application and up to the time of naturalization. You must also establish that you have resided in the state or service district having jurisdiction over the application for 3 months prior to filing. The concept of continuous residence involves your maintaining a permanent dwelling place in the United States over the period of time required by the statute. The residence in question, quote, is the same as the alien's domicile or principal actual dwelling, without regard to the alien's intent and the duration of an alien's residence in a particular location, measured from the moment the alien first established residence in that location. Accordingly, your residence is generally your actual physical location, regardless of your intentions to claim it as your residence. Certain classes of applicants may be eligible for a reduced period of continuous residence, for constructive continuous residence well outside of the United States, or for an exemption from the continuous residence requirement altogether. These classes of applicants include certain military members and certain spouses of U.S. citizens. The requirements of continuous residence and physical presence are interrelated, but are different requirements. Each requirement must be satisfied, unless otherwise specified, in order for you to be eligible for naturalization. The United States Citizenship and Immigration Services considers the entire period from the lawful permanent residence admission until the present when determining your compliance with the continuous residence requirement. An order of removal terminates your status as a lawful permanent resident and therefore disrupts the continuity of residence for purposes of naturalization. However, if you have been readmitted as a lawful permanent resident after a deferred inspection or an immigration judge in removal proceedings, this can satisfy the residence and physical presence requirements in the same manner as any other applicant for naturalization. Other examples that may arise a rebuttable presumption that you have abandoned your lawful permanent resident status include cases where there is evidence that you voluntarily claim non-resident alien status to qualify for special exemptions from income tax liability, or failing to file either federal or state income tax returns because you consider yourself to be a non-resident alien. As an applicant for naturalization, you have the burden of establishing that you have complied with the continuous residence requirement, if applicable. Generally, there are 2 ways outlined in the statute in which the continuity of residence can be broken. 1, you are absent from the United States for more than 6 months but less than 1 year, or 2, you are absent from the United States for 1 year or more. A United States Citizenship and Immigration Services officer may also review whether your multiple absences of less than 6 months each will be able to satisfy the continuous residence requirement. In some of these cases, you may not be able to establish that your principal actual dwelling place in the United States or established residence within the United States for the statutorily required period of time. As a lawful permanent resident, your lengthy or frequent absences from the United States can also result in a denial of naturalization due to abandonment of permanent residence. On the flip side, if you have an approved application to preserve residence for naturalization purposes, Form N-470, you can maintain your continuous residence in the United States. An absence of more than 6 months, more than 180 days, but less than 1 year, less than 365 days, During the period for which continuous residence is required, also called the statutory period, is presumed to break the continuity of such residence. This includes an absence that takes place during the statutory period before you file the naturalization application, and any absence between the filing of the application and your admission to citizenship. Your intent is not relevant to determining the location of your residence. The length of the period of absence from the United States is the defining factor in determining whether you are presumed to have disrupted the continuity of your residence. However, you may overcome the presumption of a break in the continuity of residence by providing evidence to establish that you did not disrupt the continuity of your residence. Such evidence may include, but is not limited to, documentation that during the absence you did not terminate your employment in the United States or obtain employment while abroad. Your immediate family members remain in the United States, and you retained full access or continued to own or lease a home in the United States. If the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services determines that you have broken the continuity of residence, you must establish a new period of continuous residence in order to become eligible for naturalization. The requisite duration of that period depends on the basis upon which you seek to naturalize. Typically, in such a situation, you may become eligible and may apply for naturalization at least 6 months before reaching the end of the pertinent statutory period. An absence from the United States for a continuous period of 1 year or more, 365 days or more, during the period for which continuous residence is required, will automatically break the continuity of residence. This applies whether the absence takes place before or after you file the naturalization application. Unless you have an approved application to preserve residence for naturalization purposes, Form N-470, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services must deny a naturalization application for failure to meet the continuous residence requirement if you have been continually absent for a period of 1 year or more during the statutory period. Form N-470 preserves residence for lawful permanent residents engaged in qualified employment abroad with the United States government, private sector, or religious organization. If you're applying for naturalization under INA 316, which requires 5 years of continuous residence, you must then wait at least 4 years and 1 day after returning to the United States, whenever 364 days or less of the absence remains within the statutory period, to have the requisite continuous residence to apply for naturalization. The statutory period preceding the filing of an application is calculated from the date of filing. Once 4 years and 1 day have elapsed from the date of your return to the United States, the period of absence from the United States that occurred within the 5 years is now less than 1 year. Since the period of absence is still more than 6 months, your naturalization in these circumstances must also overcome the presumption of a break in the continuity of residence. If you then reapply for naturalization at least 4 years and 6 months after reestablishing residence in the United States, you would not be subject to the presumption of a break in residence because the period of absence immediately preceding the application date is now less than 6 months. These are the core parameters for the continuous residency requirement under the general naturalization provision to become a United States citizen, with the recognition that there are further nuances and specifications that need to be navigated and understood. As the administrator of the U.S. naturalization process, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services provides extensive insights and information as to the United States naturalization process. We welcome you to subscribe to our channel for more informative and instructive videos, as well as learning about our international legal practice. Thank you.